I'd like to call the March 9th Study Commission meeting to order. If we can please have a roll call. I have Lori Casey, Cindy Perdue-Dolan's excused, Ben Thielen, Matt Steppen, Raylyn Brandel, Dan Dennehy, Chad Silk, Cindy Shaw, and Mary McCormick. If we can have our Pledge of Allegiance and prayer. Okay, first item is public comment on any item on the agenda, and we don't have anybody. Did we receive any emails? And then public comment on anything not on the agenda, also nobody in the audience tonight. So can I have an approval of the minutes of meeting held February 23rd? We had a set of revised minutes that came out from Shanna, and we have the original minutes. So if I can have an approved minutes from February 23rd. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really difficult, but there's some things that are in the revised minutes. I think that maybe Shanna just took it like in the past where it was just done word for word. And I struggle with some of the things that were in there. So I'm not sure how to address that with this body, but maybe put it out to discussion.
Madam Chair, so there's the amended minutes
Right.
of February 23rd, and then there was the minutes that were provided to us by Shanna that weren't amended, were the original minutes, which didn't have some of the comments and some of the corrections or additions to it. I would say that I would rather approve the minutes that are not amended. Just because I think you have the opportunities to do that, but I think you get into a slippery slope where you might not know what the minutes are, or you want something added on after the fact. And I think last week when Commissioner Perdue-Dolan brought it up, no one knew what was in her mind, and then she sent the additions, the amendments to Shanna for conclusion, and I don't think it adds to our debate. It doesn't take away from the debate. It's just some sort of, I guess, editorial comments. And from my perspective, I don't think we need those. I think those people who were involved in that committee meeting and that meeting itself knew what the discussion was, but I don't think it has to be approved and made part of our record. So I would say that in my mind, I would rather have the non-amended minutes approved versus the amended approved, just because now if I don't like what happens here tonight, I want to go back and say, Shanna, could you look at the verbatim transcript, and I want to add something to that. And I just don't think hindsight's 20/20 in this case. So I would rather have the non-amended minutes approved.
Are there other comments or discussion in relation? Ms. Casey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would agree with both Cindy and Dan. I don't think the addition of what's in the minutes are supposed to be a summary of what transpired, and I don't think what's been amended is germane to what we are doing here. It doesn't affect any decisions that we made or did not make during that period, and so I would recommend not approving the amended minutes also, or be in favor of that. It is a permanent record because YouTube's a permanent record of what happened, but I just don't think as a summary of going back to look at minutes of what we need to do, or if somebody wanted to see what transpired, I don't think the addition is germane to what we are doing.
Is there any other discussion regarding the amended minutes? Okay. Ms. McCormick?
I guess I would just like to say, you know, what Cindy and Dan and Lori have referred to as the minutes being summary of discussions is certainly comparable to what happens at a regular council of commissioner meetings. You know, those are very long meetings and there's always lots of discussions, but I think the council secretary takes great care to summarize, you know, really what the key points are and what the motions are and what the findings are. So I agree with Dan's motion that we approve the original minutes.
I don't think we had the motion yet, but we can definitely, I want to make sure there's other discussion or room for other discussion. All right. Did you want to make a motion, Mr. Dennehy?
Microphone.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that the original minutes of February 23rd, 2026 be included as approved and the amended not approved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Dennehy and a second from Shaw, and I will take my roll call vote. Ms. Casey? Mr. Thielen?
If they want to look at it, I suppose they can go to YouTube, but I think we're here to do a service to the constituents and the public of Silver Bow, and fighting over shit like this is exactly that. It's bullshit. So I'm not going to vote.
Mr. Thielen, you can vote no. You know, you don't have to abstain from the vote. You can vote no. Okay. Mr. Steppen? I vote aye. Mr. Dennehy?
Aye.
Mr. Silk?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Ms. McCormick? Okay, thank you. Motion carries to vote or to approve the original minutes and reject the amended minutes for the meeting of February 23rd. Moving on to the approval of minutes of the meeting held March 2nd, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve the March 2nd minutes?
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 2nd.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Casey and a second from Dennehy. Is there any discussion about the March 2nd minutes? Okay, so moving on, Ms. Casey,
Aye.
Mr. Thielen, Mr. Steppen, I vote aye. Mr. Dennehy,
Aye.
Mr. Silk,
Aye.
Ms. Shaw, Ms. McCormick. Thank you, motion carries. Moving on to correspondence under study commission update. I jumped the gun on that at the beginning. I didn't have any study commission communication. Has anybody else received any? Okay, thank you. Moving on to our unfinished business. This is going to bring back a question of what happened on the December 30th, 2025 meeting. So Mr. Thielen, at our last meeting, you said that you did not vote for the 4 commissioners and a mayor. So I did go back and review, and you did vote in the affirmative, and you raised your hand on that vote. If you would like to review the YouTube, it was at 1:09. We had the motion and the second on full-time commissioners. You seconded that motion. And then at 1:10, we had the 4 full-time commissioners, and Mayor and Casey had made the motion on that one. And in that vote, you did raise your hand in the aye. And then after that, we had a discussion about the unanimous votes for all of the things that were on that agenda that night. And so I just wanted to bring that back, and we're now to the point of where we're taking a roll call vote each time, which is fine, and we need to do that. With regards to what is being voted on, we're moving things to the report. So it's to the study commission report, this preliminary report. Then we're going out to get public comment and have a public hearing. So between this point and the time that we finish our public sessions and our public hearing, we can change our minds. You know, you very well may have heard from public that, 4 commissioners and a mayor is too much. And it's completely okay for us to come back and revisit that issue. And then when we make our final votes about what we are pushing to the ballot, that's where we'd have a hearty discussion and motions and maybe change our mind or, discuss what might be new or different in that and what needs to go to the ballot. And so I want us to keep in mind that in some ways, what's coming into the preliminary report, it's word preliminary means it's a draft. It's our best thinking to date, and we're waiting for public comment. And so it doesn't marry us to the decisions that are in that report. We can change our mind if we need to. And it may be that we only put one thing on the ballot after all of our deliberations. But I just wanted to bring that back and clear up that particular comment regarding the motions. And also in our meeting minutes from December 30th, there is a recording of the motion and it being recorded as the motion, the second, and then recorded as unanimous vote. Ms. McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may be wrong, but I thought it was the December 29th meeting, not the 30th.
Excuse me, December 29th, yes. Okay, so our community outreach, unless there's further discussion, Mr. Thielen, any further discussion or comments or? Mr. Thielen, you said you didn't vote on that one, and so I wanted to make sure that we brought it back. You said
Madam
that you
Chair,
voted against
originally it was for 7 commissioners, and I think that's too many. I think 5 are too many. I've been talked to since. 3 is plenty, and that's where I'm going to go with. And if I voted for it, maybe it was in error. Maybe at that time, maybe that's what I thought. But since then, no. 3 people are plenty to be the commissioners. And if you want to sit here and go over every vote that I've done, have at it. Because I'm not going to sit here and be chastised by you. You got it? That's it. If you want to go back and go over everything that I've done, do it.
Mr. Thielen, when you make a comment that you didn't vote for something and we've moved something forward, and then you had,
I
no,
don't
it's my
believe I
turn.
did.
Please. And then we've had, you abstained from votes, and then I didn't catch that you abstained. I think it is important for me to go back and review. And so
Check
we've
them
done
all.
that.
Go check them all.
Okay.
Then come back and give us another report.
Are we ready to move on?
Pardon me?
Are we ready to move on?
If you are. If you're
Okay.
done Ben bashing, get with it.
I think also it is our duty to make sure that we have everything recorded as well as we can and that we are bringing back the issues and we remember where we're at. It's fine that you've changed your mind. That's completely okay. So moving on to our community outreach preliminary schedule review, Ms. Adams had sent that to us for us to look at. She had some suggested changes. Excuse me, I'm trying to get to the right document. Okay, so our preliminary report, we will meet that March 30th deadline that it's released to the public, and the community survey would come out March 30th. Her changes, she had a conflict on April 9th and April 16th, so she adjusted the dates to April 14th would be Melrose, April 15th would be noon to 1 p.m. at Northwestern Energy, April 21st would be Ramsey at 5:30, and April 23rd would be Butte Brewing at 5:30. And she suggested a format of 20 to 30 minutes presentation by us, which we had just done before, and then have the poster boards for each proposed ballot initiative and ask attendees to vote for various alternatives with dots and provide comments. And the community survey is also available. And so her question to us is, do we need a revised flyer as a takeaway? And then are these dates good for the commission? Mr. Silk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the dates, personally, they work for me. And then I think as soon as we can narrow them down to let the public know in the flyers, regardless if they don't work for everyone, to just get them booked and let the public know. Thanks.
Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only see one real difference, and that's having 2 in a row, the 14th and 15th, which is fine with me, but otherwise I think it's pretty much what we had talked about. And having them close together, I think, is probably not a bad idea. We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time we have a meeting. And we should have a noon meeting, at least one, you know, probably for people that work till 6 or 8 o'clock at night. I don't know. But yeah, I'm okay with it myself.
Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I'm also good with it. I like the idea of having the meetings close together. So we would figure out the times that are during the week, which I think is a great idea. So I have no problem with this schedule.
Any other comments or worries about that schedule? Okay. So we'll go ahead and roll with that, and May 4th being our public hearing. And so then that brings us to the conversation that we were having ahead of the meeting with our, with Cindy Sherman regarding when we need to get our ballots ready. And so looking at the timeline, at May 4th, with our public hearing, I think we definitely need to be taking action on what's moving to the ballot on May 11th. And so being prepared for that to give our county attorney and Ruth enough time to get the ballot language, you know, finalized and over to her office in case we have any snags with the state. And so that way we can get things, you know, we're ahead of the game. So just want to put that date out there for all of us to consider as well. All right, and also in this next section, Shanna gave us some details about direct mailing costs. And so the 6.25 by 9-inch postcard with both sides to, you know, just over 17,000 pieces would be $7,000, $7,301. And then she's recommending an 8th-page ad at $195 at 4 weeks, which would be $800, and then some additional printing costs of $1,000. And so she's looking for our authorization, basically, if we round this up to about $9,000. Ms. Casey.
Madam Chair, I would just ask if anyone's had experience with the mass mailer survey, if it is worth if there's a cost benefit to doing that we would get more. I personally am not a good survey responder on anything, so I'm just wondering if others, like maybe Mary or yourself or Matt, have done this, and if you get a greater response.
Mr. Steppen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have much experience with it. I do think that part of trying to collect this information is to make sure that everyone has the opportunity, whether they choose to do it or not. And this seems to me to be the way that ensures that everybody at least will get it. That's my opinion anyway.
Ms. Shaw?
Well, I ran for office 5 times. I can tell you I always used a postcard, and I sent it to everybody. My district's 1,250 people, but even if I know you're talking survey, but it just reminds people what we're doing. It's sort of a reminder, like a placeholder. They may not do the survey, but just that we recognize that they are an important person to reach out to, and then maybe the card could even give the I don't know if this is during the April listening sessions, you know, maybe have the dates on there or something, I don't know, for people to see. But at $7,000, that's really not bad, and especially to the whole county. Just my 7,000 cents.
Other comments or concerns on the $9,000 roughly? Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it does seem like a big chunk of money, but I agree with Matt that, I mean, it would be important. I mean, it's one time, this is, I think, the critical thing that we need input on so that we can make our decision on the final thing. So the more input we can get, the better. I'm not sure if we'll get everybody all over the county, but I definitely think we'll get more input. I know I'm part of an organization, and we send out a newsletter every year, and, you know, we have a donation form in there, and we get most of our donations from sending out that newsletter. So there is that. And I also want to know, I mean, if we run into financial problems, isn't there the idea that we might be able to go back and ask for some more money?
I believe we're authorized for what we're authorized for, but we do have $80,000 left right now.
Okay.
And I think that should carry us, given we've been forecasting, looking at Shanna's expenses, this expense, and then any other salaries that we might have for our 2 ex officio members that are helping.
Well, I do think that, you know, I think we've done a lot of work, and we've done a lot of things, and we've done a lot of outreach, and it's really, really hard. But if we do this, and we say we mailed it out to everybody, then we've done a comprehensive outreach. So I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Thielen?
Madam Chair, mass mailings seem like they do work. We use them a lot, like with Mary, another organization I'm involved in. And it just, people will take a look at it, and if they choose to. If not, then at least we tried, like she said. They can't say they didn't know.
Okay. If I could, I would ask for a motion to authorize the expenses that Ms. Adams is asking for, listed on our email from her. Mr. Thielen?
I'll make a motion that we authorize the funds for the mass mailing.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but is it all she kind of has it lumped under direct mailing costs, but she has the ads for approximately 800, some printing costs for 1,000. So I think the motion would need to be amended to authorize the full amount or what she's got listed here.
Well, we can amend that to everything that Shanna has listed for the community reach out to, the mailings, and all the advertising that she was requested. So make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thielen. Ms. Shaw has seconded. Is there any more discussion? Okay. Ms. Casey?
Aye.
Mr. Thielen? Mr. Steppen? I vote aye. Mr. Dennehy?
Aye.
Mr. Silk?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Ms. McCormick? Thank you. Motion carries. So now moving on to the preliminary report work session. I think for the case of the work session, we can just speak back and forth. We can suspend our please acknowledge the chair piece so we can talk freely and get moving through this. And then we'll kind of set our agenda for what needs to get done by next Monday. Does everybody have access to the report? Yeah. All right, we did have some markup changes, so we want to make sure that people have those, but if we don't see the markup changes, I can definitely read those off. Let me give you the kind of how it went.
Madam Chair, is there is there a copy, a paper copy for Ben so he can? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. What? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so working through this, here's how this went. So Dan, myself, and Chad started with what we called the very sloppy copy, dumped in what we could. Shanna had taken that back, and she revised a few things, not really with content, but rather with the format and the flow of that document. And so there are still things that need to be finished in this document. Notably, we don't have fire services completely lined out what the 2 options are, and we also don't have a conclusion. And so if we want to just start working through, we can start talking about comments. I will work those comments and make changes as we were working through.
Madam Chair, and also Mary did the drafting and the editing of this document, which came out really well, I thought. So thanks, Mary, for your work on this document.
Thanks, Dan.
Madam Chair, I didn't have Mary's copy, but I just have a few things, and I want to thank you guys for putting this together. Your sloppy copy was done pretty well, in my opinion, so thank you guys for working on it. I just, some of my comments were, let me just get to my copy here just a minute. Under charter, or it was where you're talking about reducing the number of commissioners in that section. I thought in there you could also talk about that's where neighborhood councils would come into play too, is for people to have still that connectivity and representation. And I'm not finding, my comments aren't going to where they should. It was in section representation of the rural areas in that paragraph. I thought that, to me, that's especially where neighborhood councils would work well, is in the rural areas, so that they could have better representation. It's just another thing listed within the items that you have. And the other thing was in the fire services, where you, under fire services in the background, where it says Melrose and Walkerville maintain their own fire departments and coordinate with Butte-Silver. I hesitate to put Melrose in like that. I think a better thing would be that Melrose is their own fire Melrose and Divide areas operate as rural fire departments and are funded through a separate rural fire taxing district. And the reason I say that is districts are good until they're not. And I kind of go back to Rocker Water and Sewer District. I don't know if folks are familiar with it, but it ran well for a long time. And then when there was no volunteers or no money, they needed somebody to take it over. And that somebody was Butte-Silver local government. So I hesitate to tie somebody into something for 10 years or longer in a charter change. So I would just wordsmith that a little bit, that right now they currently have their own taxing jurisdiction. That was just my comment there. But Walkerville is, I think, they are their own municipality, technically, unlike Melrose or Divide. So that was just my comment there, and my hesitation to say they're separate like Walkerville.
Madam Chair? And Lori, so I'm on page 8, and so you're just responding to the one reference to Melrose and Walkerville maintaining their own fire departments and coordinating?
Yeah.
Is that what you're at?
Yeah,
didn't know what
Cindy,
page.
and it was in the background section.
Background.
There's, right in the very first paragraph, 719 square miles, and then it's just a little
Right.
parentheses, Melrose and Walkerville are their own fire departments and coordinate with Butte-Silver as needed.
Okay, that's where I was at, on
Yep.
page 8.
Yeah, it's page 6 on the document that I had reviewed, so sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
Lori said about neighborhood councils. Okay. First of all, I do think we should just call them neighborhood councils, not community councils, but not, you said that, but just to avoid confusion. And I think you're right, is that the neighborhood councils are a function of the Council of Commissioners. So it may be better suited to where you suggested it be. I did go through, if you look up, if you can see my red line, it may not show up as red line, but I did a little more on neighborhood councils, what they were, and what the existing charter just says the council commissioners may approve. And I think, that we wanted to expand that so that the Council of Commissioners will develop an ordinance for policies and procedures. I did add, it gets a little cumbersome, and it's how we have it is, okay, if a neighborhood council follows that ordinance, and is ready, then they come to the council, and then the council has to approve that, shall approve it. So I don't know if we need all that in there or not, so. Sorry.
Did somebody have a stroke?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. It reads, and I like it. The reason why I like it is because we spend a lot of time debating the issue of may and shall.
Yeah.
And it said that authorizing, and one of the things we wanted to do is make sure the Council of Commissioners provide the game plan and the planning for neighborhood councils. That the Council of Commissioners will provide the policy, will provide the policies and procedures. They are the ones, the Council of Commissioners are the ones that are going to ensure that neighborhood councils are appropriately established, organized, and so your idea of authorizing the Council of Commissioners to establish by ordinance policies and procedures for the formation of neighborhood councils. The ordinance will provide a blueprint for neighborhoods, a blueprint for residents of the neighborhood to create an organized structure for the council and set goals and objectives that state the needs and concerns of the community. The charter will be further amended to state the Council of Commissioners shall approve neighborhood councils organized that have fulfilled the provisions of the ordinance. Very important.
I like that.
I think that if we don't have that in there, it's kind of like, well, they're just changing shall to, or may to shall. This provides the Council of Commissioners the authority to establish the game plan and the rules for neighborhood councils.
So that was on page 5 of the printed copy, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
if, and it's page 5 of the printed copy, and then it's page 4 in the electronic copy. And if you printed this before 4 o'clock, you have an outdated copy because I got Mary's copy. So yours is updated, Mr. Thielen. I just handed another one out to Chad and Matt. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I still go back to the original concept that they are mentioned. There is a distinct mention about neighborhood councils in the charter. I don't mind the idea that we formalize some of the procedures to start them, but I'm so worried about it's going to get misconstrued that the Council of Commissioners have to do things. They are just authorizing. They're just saying they shall authorize. It's a grassroots, it's one of Mary's favorite expressions, I love it. It's a grassroots approach, it's a ground-up approach with citizens. And I would just want to make sure that whatever we say doesn't even give the whiff, and I'm just saying I love Ed Vanderrub, but he would probably find something in there that because he always wanted to have the council be the ones that instigated and started neighborhood councils. And nothing against Ed, but that was his perception of it. Now it says we shall authorize them, and authorizing is simply blessing. I just look at it as a blessing to do, yes, please do this, but it's your job to organize, you as, Mr. John Q. Public, to do the work. And there should be guidelines, which I think are important to even allow a certain group or just one person to even pursue it. But I want to make sure that it is a ground-up kind of an arrangement with the public. So all the years I spent with council, it just never was clear. Of course, what we have in there just says, here you go. But I like the idea that we're saying that there are just criteria involved in starting it. But it's got to come from the citizens. Thanks.
Ms. McCormick?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're not charging the council with any duties in forming a neighborhood council or neighborhood councils. We're just, and that, the council's the one that is supposed to write ordinances and or approve them. And so I think it's important that they, they're just gonna write an ordinance, or, a lawyer or a county attorney or a department head is gonna write an ordinance that's just gonna provide the guidelines for setting up neighborhood councils. And if you look, like in a lot of charters like Great Falls, they have the whole process outlined in the charter. And I don't think that's what we want to do in our charter. So they're just going to make an ordinance that'll provide the guidelines. And then the neighborhood, the residents, people, if they say, we want to form a neighborhood council, okay, here's an ordinance that tells us how we do it. So we're going to do all the steps that it requires. And then we're going to go to council and we're going to say, here's our neighborhood council blueprint, document, organizational structure. Council reads through it and says, you met all the guidelines, we approve your thing. But it's no way is it gonna compel the Council of Commissioners to go pounding on doors and telling people that are gonna form a council.
We're still reading.
Madam Chair, and again, just to reiterate, this is really important when we were in our forum, in our working group, that this would be included for some of the comments and some of the public involvement that we had on this issue. But again, it'll be the neighborhood providing for what that council looks like. And the council will be providing those guidelines. Is there going to be an application process? How many people in the neighborhood consist of a neighborhood council? The council will provide this sort of blueprint, and they will have to, the neighborhood council will have to approve or has to set the standard for each one of those things. If they don't, then the neighborhood councils aren't established. If they do, then they are established.
Ms. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just, would the council also define what a neighborhood is? What I'm thinking is, like, some people think Greeley's a neighborhood and Racetrack's a separate neighborhood, so you could end up with 40 neighborhood council groups, or they could be larger areas of a neighborhood. So would the thought be that the neighborhood group define their area or the Council of Commissioners? Just kind of a procedural question that maybe has nothing to do with the charter, but just in thinking that some people think their neighborhood's real small, and others it's a larger area of coverage. So I'm just wondering, to me it would seem that the council could probably define that.
And hopefully they would do that when they do their ordinance.
In the report, do you suggest that we add the council will define neighborhoods, or just leave it? Okay, thank you.
I think we can leave it open. It was
Okay.
just kind of an open-ended question, in my opinion. But I think it could be open, that it didn't have to be that tight.
Mr. Steppen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm looking at page 8, under fire services, the first sentence under background. Looks like it has a couple of things. One, there's a footnote after departments, but I'm not seeing at the bottom where that footnote is explained. It was in a previous copy. And it looks like where that footnote is located, I'm not sure if that's the end of the sentence. You're just fine. Yeah. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
And Mary, you may have added this after, but the other important part I thought of option 2 piece was that volunteer coordinator that was going to be chosen by the volunteers. And the version I read didn't see that in there, but I think that's an important piece of option 2 too. But, and you may have added it, but. Sure. Sure.
But for me, on both of the options, one of the key components for both of the options is a consolidated one.
Thank you. I think that the purpose, as I understand it, of including the volunteer coordinator is to memorialize and formalize a seat at the table as a single point of contact. But I think we want to be careful about prescribing consolidation regardless of the option. I think that what the information that we were presented, it was understood that there's an expectation that consolidation is likely necessary, but I think we want to be careful about not requiring it through charter language, if that makes sense, and allowing whichever option is chosen, the leaders, based on the result of the vote, to make the decisions necessary for efficient fire services. So I would disagree on that last part about putting consolidated language in the charter. And if it's helpful, you said that you could use some help, particularly in this area. I'm happy to help.
There, yeah, so one option, and so how do we discuss that? We just say we're taking them out of the charter. Do we go ahead and mention the things that the volunteer, we got that letter from Ed Fisher, and all the things that, he sees the steps forward, how they're gonna do things, and he does talk about making a volunteer chief. A chief of the chiefs, just, and he does talk about it. So,
I think an appropriate place for that is in the appendices. So we could refer people to the appendices. If this was the plan that was given forth, maybe that would be the place to put it. Because I think if we start adding in everything that they propose, we'll have
Okay.
a novel.
So just a short, sweet, would take them out of the charter. They'll be out of, they won't be part of the charter. They will no longer be part of the Butte-Silver government, and just what they will be. And just say, and that's gonna be just one little paragraph.
And I would add how they would be funded, that they would create their own taxing jurisdictions to be funded. And I think those are the key points of the volunteers to being out of the charter is they'd be on their own, just like you said, and then they would be funded separately by creating their own individual taxing districts, which under current situation would be 9 different individual taxing districts. So I just think that's a fact. They'd have to be funded. That's not swaying one way or the other. Their funding would be separate from the fire services fund.
On, off, on, off. So when we talk about option 2, where the volunteers are kept and they're under the command of the fire chief. And so I'll talk about what those there are going to be some charter changes if we do that, like the volunteer coordinator position. I think that needs to be added into the charter, correct? Okay, I'll do that, but then the next thing that'll need to be done is somebody changing the charter language for that option. Okay, so I will try really hard tomorrow, and I will get something to you on that, and then you can make it look pretty.
We had a question in the document too that, in past reports, there was a table that had the existing language and then the proposed changes. And that gets very cumbersome. And so we had a idea to put in the proposed charter changes in the report and then just put the, reference to that section of the existing in the appendices. I don't know what folks think about that, or if we want to try to do the two side-by-side comparison. Mr. Dennehy?
Madam Chair, I think that's section 3, comparison of existing proposed structure. This tends to make our preliminary report very large. I would rather to see it move to an appendices and then have it compared with what the existing charter is and what the new language could be if the voters vote for it. It just seems to me, and the reason why I'm saying this is that I'm the one that wrote this section. So, no, I don't like it, no. Actually, Shanna was going to do her AI stuff, and she did a great job here. But I got lazy and just put in just the captions of it, and I just capitalized it and said, well, if anybody wants to read it, anybody on our commission can read it. But I think probably having that side-to-side changes is important, but that's going to get cumbersome too. So I'm good with either one. I don't know the comparison. And Chad did a great job in the comparison of his chart, which is where I would go to because it's easy to see. And so I just threw this in there because I was scared that you were going to yell at me, Rayla. And because I didn't do my work, so I just kind of threw this all in. So
one of the things I kind of like, and it might come from reading legislative, but is if you just do a table that, like section by section, like section 1.1, no change, section 3, new, and then you just have a chart of what's new, what's been changed, and then you can go to somewhere for those changes. But the overall, you could go like like section 1.1, whatever that title is in the charter, no change. And then just note if it's a new section or a change in the section, and then you could go to that particular. For me, that helps not only being on this commission, but when I looked at other things, it's like, well, I don't need to read this. This isn't new, or this isn't a change. And because while we hope everybody's going to read this document, I think our best is if they read the executive summary and maybe go to some tables, really and truly. There'll be some that will read it word for word, but a lot of people will not take the time to read documents. So the executive summary will be important to call out, and then I think somewhere that shows where you can go and look for the changes. But that's just my opinion. I find that helpful.
I think that's a great idea, because then you could just drop the existing charter as an appendix or reference them to it with a link or something like that. And we don't have to put those pages in, maybe might be helpful. And then they could just go, here's the sections that we have that are changing. And those are our recommended changes. That makes sense. And then just really quickly too, this introduction section was initially the executive summary or letter to the, it's in the preliminary report, or the reports, it's letter to the citizenry from, that's what they said. So that section would probably be letter to the citizenry or a summary. And then report summary is the findings, et cetera. And then, so to that end, Ms. Casey, I think, like when we go down on the electronic version on page 15, we put the executive officer section 5.01, but we don't have any recommended changes there. Is that correct?
Right.
Because we pulled out, or did we pull out chief executive? That chief executive was named ahead of that, correct? Okay, so we could probably pull that section. Probably same for, was there any changes for 5.02 in the charter? When we're doing language on qualification and elections?
No. That's, excuse me, Madam Chair, that's original language.
Okay.
So there's no change in that section. Nor in 5.03, 5.04, 5.05. None of that has changed.
Okay.
And then I got lazy and then put 06, 6.0, 7.0, 8.0.
Please do take some time with the summary chart. We batted this around quite a bit, so we want to make sure that we have that well laid out, especially the evaluative comments there. So please do take some time with that. It looks like we have a formatting problem with proposed plan under commissioner manager. It's carrying over into that other. Yeah.
Some things seem a little bare bones, but in retrospect, I think, it may be good not to have too much, and we won't overwhelm people. So I think keeping it precise and concise is good.
I also think having the no changes in there just correlates with Lori's idea of even better, just to make it consistent throughout the document.
Yeah, right. Madam Chair, and,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Number 5, summary and conclusions. Where is this is this part of the MSU local government section, or did we talk about? It's just kind of our conclusion is government's going to have adequate checks and just those sort of 3, 4, or 5 paragraphs that explain this.
Yeah, so those titles come from the report, the model report. We can work on that summary and conclusions and think about those sections if we'd like, if there's something we want to add in there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for cross-talking here.
No,
Um,
I said it was completely fine for us to
Yeah,
be
okay.
deliberative amongst each other
So-
right now.
Is that already in this? So I was thinking about the transition period, after the vote, and I didn't know where that might be, if we even mentioned, blah, 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 this will, if things are voted in, that we will require to have a transition plan, so.
I think the statement is just that we're required to help create a transition plan
Okay.
because the council and the existing elected officers will have to execute that transition plan, as I understand. We can make our recommendations, and then we will stay seated and help them do the transition plan. But they could say we're going to do it differently, I think,
Okay.
if I've got that right.
Madam Chair, I guess back to Cindy's point, does something need to be mentioned so that people don't think that the day after election, we're going to have a city manager?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
Yeah, that there is going to be a period of time.
Yeah, I think that
Especially on the Council of Commissioners, because half of them, I believe, are up for election. So they serve their 4-year term if elected.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to put in the summary and conclusions too, that should these be, there's a transition period, but
Yeah.
I don't think we want to put the whole plan in there in case it's,
No, I just think
Rejected.
maybe some mention so that folks know there will be a transition period and plan created pending the outcome of the votes on the commissioners and the city manager on those two forms. And
All right. Other questions? You guys were having some questions over here or some thoughts? Anything else? Okay. Okay. Mr. Steppen?
Thank you. Is there, and maybe this is what you're talking about in that language at the end, but there's probably some things that if the voters choose a specific direction that may require revision to the charter. I'm thinking, for example, under fire services, the fire advisory committee may be required to be altered if that structure changes. Would that be true? Or can it hold as is under either option? For example, I believe it's 3 commissioners, 3 volunteers, 3 career. Now that's 75% of your commissioners if there's only 4. Maybe we're okay with that because that would mean they're full-time. Under the removal from the charter, can we have the fire advisory committee as is? Or are we compelling groups that we can't compel?
This is an excellent question. Mr. Silk, you had your mic on.
Yeah, I think that's something that when we discuss the charter changes, I think those need to be included with the correct language in it, as Mary talked about before, because they are 2 different options. There needs to be the charter amendments, and I think the fire advisory definitely has to be mentioned in that. And then I think there has to be 2 separate charter changes so the voters can look at it and see it, because they're so vastly different that we can't have a hybrid of that. So there is going to be quite a bit of work that needs to go into that to make it appropriate, I guess, for a legal document of the charter.
Excuse me. I'll get it for him. I don't know. We're going to have one charter amendment that's going to take the volunteers out of the charter. And I think that would mean that they probably get taken out of the Fire Advisory Council, correct?
If they're out of it,
Yeah, I believe so, and there could be something formed afterwards, right? But it would be new, and it would be on behalf of the trustees following their own local government, or their political subdivision decision. So you're exactly right. I think the whole 7.3 needs to be rewritten, because you can't control entities outside of the charter if they're not in the charter. Something to think about.
It's going to be a lot of work, both amendments. Both options, the amendments for both options are going to require a lot of thought. We could just even take the Fire Advisory Council completely out of the charter. That doesn't mean it couldn't be something. And, Chad has talked about we could just do these things by ordinance, and there may be, I was like, well, do what by ordinance? But there may be specific things that we could call out, especially for if either one, that maybe have ordinances, have some of the things that we can't figure out. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But anyway, we are going to have to look at those very closely and stuff, and I think that's where there's going to be a lot of effort needed.
I think a couple meetings ago too, we said we need those draft changes to the charter, what that would look like. And so I don't know if the same group wants to work on those or we want to workshop that with a different group. So I'll just throw that out there for, I know you two are a part of that group. I don't know. And Ms. Shaw is. Mr. Thielen, Mr. Steppen.
So just thinking about this, I mean, the Fire Advisory Council, even if the volunteers are out of the charter, why would we have to eliminate that? And if we did, couldn't we just call it something else, you know, as a recommendation?
My thought on that is, under that option, we would have to work out what's the term for the agreements? MOUs for services, and it's there that collaboration would probably have to be created. I think I look at it different. We probably can't require the volunteers to be part of fire advisory if they're out of the charter. So it would be an opportunity to start a fresh collaboration. I guess but it's probably, we would probably have to go that direction. I don't think by taking them out of the charter, keeping it as is would say that the volunteers are required to be part of this fire advisory committee when they're not under our jurisdiction. We can't compel them to do that.
I agree with that, but I also would think that the volunteers would want to be part of something of that nature so everybody's on the same page. You know, I do truly believe that they need to train with the paid so everybody's all on the same page. You know, and that's just from a safety aspect for the volunteers and for the paid guys. You know, they go to a fire, I don't want to see nobody get hurt. You know, it's bad enough the way it is. So I would think that they would want to be part of some sort of a committee or council, even if we called it something different or made the recommendation to call it something different. I would think that they would want to be part of that.
I do too. I just don't think it can be in the charter. So I look at it as if we were including something about the road maintenance department and we required the state snow plow group to be part of a committee, they would say, you can't require us to do that.
Right.
But, so I think, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't think it can legally be in the charter at that point.
Okay.
That's my best understanding.
I think you're absolutely correct, and it looks like others are in agreement with that too. And we can run it by, you know, our county attorney, of course, but I think we can't compel an outside group.
Madam Chair, I would agree. I don't believe it should be in there. You know, bottom line is whatever options chosen by the community. If somebody doesn't want to play in the sandbox, they're not going to. And they're going to look at ways not to. And they're either going to get out or they're going to start throwing sand. And so I think keeping the charter as clean as possible is what we need to do here. And so I think they need to come out, and I think back to what Mary's saying, I think option one, I think you keep it option one is remove the volunteers. Here's what the charter language for option one would be. Option two would be what option two is, and here's the charter language if option two is chosen. I think you gotta really keep those separate and show right after what that option is, we show this is what the charter language would look like, because I think you're going to have to keep everything straight, not confused. That would be my thought of how to handle it, since unless by the time we get to the final report, we're only going to put one option forward to the voters. But if we're going to put two options forward to the voters, we have to have both options of the charter, because we would not have an opportunity to change it after the vote.
Yeah, exactly. Ms. Shaw?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Call me crazy, but I think if they are separated completely on their own, they still work with the paid. I think, as a team, whatever the needs are, I believe that would be the case. But they can't be in the charter, but by resolution or ordinance, there are options, or MOU, like Matt said, there could be some kind of a connection in writing, some kind of an arrangement that I believe would happen completely outside of our purview and after, whatever the decisions are that are made. Thanks.
Mr. Seppen?
To the last part of what you were saying, as far as the specific language, I think the county attorney started to look at all the sections that would require to be revised. And what he presented to us were kind of those bullet points on where. So I think the next step is getting that specific language. And it was more a question that I had because I think our committee was focusing on that section without giving as much thought to the other sections that are affected by each option. And so I think that's where we'll lean on the county attorney, and I can work with him on getting those specific language changes to those sections.
Thank you for volunteering for that. I forgot about that report. It's one of the things I think I handed off to you. So anyway, that would be helpful if you could do that. And then to that end, I mean, where do we want to go with this? We've kind of just started to digest it. We haven't necessarily read it to understand its content as well. But I think for next week, for sure, if we can get those charter pieces, we can get them plopped in. We can maybe divide or do this table of section by section of what's changing and what's not changing. And then I can finish rounding out the conclusion part for us to review and then hand it back off. I don't know if there's somebody that wants to take on the table. Do you want to do that, Lori? That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, the table of like section 1, no change, this new section. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Madam Chair, there's also the section, there's also the section of transition. Given what the voters might vote for. I know there's 3 council of commissioners who are running for re-election right now, and they do have opponents in this race, so they'll go to the polls on June and November, and there'll be another 4 years of their term if they're voted in on November, right? So we need to have a transitional language that says, there's a date certain that this transition have to come in effect, and that's also creating 4 districts and that large vote. So those are important things too. I don't know if Chad provided, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but a very good idea in terms of starting a discussion in terms of transition plan. But just to note that I don't think we want to do all this work and then those 3 commissioners and their opponents get elected and wait for 4 more years for this to take effect. That's going to be, in 6 years after that, it's another, yeah, right. But another 6 years after that, there's another study commission being elected. So I like to see what we do, implement it, before I see the pearly gates. And so, I would like to maybe talk to the county attorney, as Matt says, to make sure that language is appropriate. Because we're going to have to stagger election terms. We're going to have different districts. We're going to have to, make sure that the people who are elected in November understand that by a date certain, there's a new election that might take place. So that's kind of important.
Madam Chair, I think we do have to clarify, because my understanding was if you're elected, they're there for 4 years.
Right.
So, and it would be 6 of them, even though 3, because I think 3 don't have proponents, but they're still being elected to a new term. And so, yeah, it's kind of like the final transition would be in 2030, I think, because 26, you have 4 years. Right? So Dan, I don't know if we're going to be here or not, but
Well, thanks.
that was my understanding, that if you're
too.
elected, you get to serve that term, and then so how you would bring in 1 or 2 of the full-time, I don't know. I guess that's what needs to be worked out, but yeah, I think that's definitely a conversation, but I do think it's important to let the public know that there is a transition period. I think that would be the point. We don't have to get specific in the report, but just to let them know that there is a transition period.
I just added that heading in the summary and conclusion section. So, Mr. Steppen, you had your hand up, so I didn't want to. You wanted to say something? Maybe you forgot. Okay.
I believe I was going in that same direction, that I don't think you can unelect people that are elected. And so it would likely be those that are beginning a 4-year term after this cycle. At the end of that 4-year, you may have people running for an interim 2-year. And I think that's probably, I guess, how my brain works on how that transition would work, starting in 4 years.
Do you want to take that to Mr. County Attorney too, since you're going to go see him?
Excuse me, I seem to remember somebody, and maybe it was the county attorney at one time, a long time ago, talking about the transition period and how, each existing commissioner had to be able to fill out their term, and then they would, these commissioners would go away, and the number of commissioners would reduce by 2, and then next year it'd be next time by 2 more, or whatever, however but I think it's something that I think the county attorney, as I remember, is aware of, so.
And Madam Chair, I took a deep dive into the elections and the transition plan that we are capable of providing to the public today. And that's the document that I sent. And I guess it frustrates me a little bit that it takes so long if the community wants to implement something like that. So I'm very curious to hear what the county attorney has to say about that. Just because of, I felt like I was taking my bar exam today, and I just finally just stopped looking at it. But I'm interested to see what he said.
Well, Chad, you passed.
Yeah, that work is much appreciated, Chad. It's just a matter of how we want to be correct with all the things that we put in there. And again, like the seated commission will get to decide in some of that transition planning too. We will recommend, and we can say we want 4 districts divided by a pie, and they're going to be like, no, we want 4 districts divided by a square or something. I don't know. So we have to just be mindful that we have limited authority. Ms. Shaw. Oh, Mr. Thielen.
Madam Chair, kind of go back to what Mary said there a little bit ago, and I don't have it with me because otherwise I'd have 3 reams of paper in there. But Ed Banderob came that one day and had that, and I think that's where Matt had gotten some of the stuff, the way that he had it cycled in for the change. So, we can go look back at that as well. I don't know if it holds water or if it's legal, but that's what it was.
I recall that conversation too, so we can go back into looking at that for sure. Ms. Shaw.
I think we're reinventing the wheel, because other cities have gone from a chief to a manager, and they had to go through this whole thing, and I don't know if the state mandated how it's done. But I could see, of course, we have the election on November 6th, and 6 people, or 4, there's actually, I think 4 2 are uncontested, and the other 4 will be going forward with 4 years. But during that 4-year time, then you have the midterms, and I think that there could be something, once we know that we're going to go with a manager and change the number of commissioners, that before that midterm election, so in that 2-year period, we could make some rules, or maybe already be some out there saying that you will only run for a 2-year term, and then it would only be a 4-year total time before we could get a manager. It's still a long time, but I'm thinking we're not reinventing any wheels, I don't think. Did you find? Thank you.
All right, folks, in terms of our work, I've piled a lot on Mr. Steppen. I've piled a little on Ms. Casey. I will finish up this bottom section in the conclusions, and then Ms. McCormick, you're going to finish up fire services, yes? Okay. And then next week, let's come with all of those changes that we collectively have decided to make, and then hopefully we can get that to the rest of the body well before the meeting, so you have a chance to review it. I sent it out Saturday, I think, so hopefully we can, be a little faster with that. I'm probably going to be close like Friday night. But, and then next week we can do another round of work session. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. According to Mr. Enruth might be our linchpin, but it's okay if he's, missing from that. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one last thing. I really like the idea of the introduction being considered a cover letter and, drafting it as such, just to give more than just an introduction, but here we are, and this is what this is all about. I like that idea. I don't know who put the comment here. This could be more of a cover letter, but I would.
It was that way in a sloppy copy once upon a time, but it's been AI'd, I think. But we can go back to that. And then, okay, so for the people that are working on things, I think just bring them separate and we'll start dumping into this preliminary document. And then I've made edits in the document in the OneDrive. I'll download it right now and send it to you, Ms. McCormick. And then the comments should retain there. So I made comments tonight from everybody. I hope I've captured everything. I think I did. I got the comments, and then I was making changes in the document as we were going with our suggested language. So do we have a good plan? Okay. All right. Excellent. So any new business? We don't have a public hearing tonight and no other scheduled matters, so we would be here next week at 5 o'clock again, and to hopefully get this report and dang near done. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn and let's go home. Sun's killing me.
Is there a second? So I have a motion from Thielen and a second by Shaw, and all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's go home. Thank you all.
I thought when the sun hit you, you melted, Ben. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And I thought that was good. I thought what you did was pretty damn good. But I'm with you. Huh? I can't.